Good day, folks, and welcome to the Anorak Review Show, with your host, the Anorak. It's time for more Phil Collins, and this time we're actually looking at an album for a change, and probably one of his most well-known ones besides Face Value. By the middle of the 1980s, Phil was already getting big, not just as the lead singer of Genesis, but also as a solo artist as well, churning out hit single after hit single, even doing songs for films such as the love theme song for Against All Odds, and appearing in and producing other people's songs, such as with the 1984 song Easy Lover by Philip Bailey. All that would culminate with the release of this album in January 1985. This, and Invisible Touch, released about a year and a half later, could be considered the peak of Phil Collins' career and overall popularity. For better, and arguably for worse too. As always, when something or someone gets popular for any reason, there are bound to be just as much those against it as there are those for it. I mean, just look at VivziePop. There must be a lot of tweets, subreddits, and YouTube channels banging on over and over anything she says or does. But regardless, this album we're looking at was still favoured by most critics and was a massive success, selling over 25 million copies worldwide. But is it as good as people say it is? Or is it as bad as people say it is? Well, let's find out for ourselves as we jump into Phil Collins' 1985 solo album, No Jackets Required. The cover itself is pretty fine. Much like Face Value, it's just a headshot, but this one is tilted in a red-orange with glycerol sprayed all over his face to give the impression of hot sweat, likely to capture the up-tempo vibe of the overall record, how hot the songs are, the music and all. Now, as for the title, that's another interesting story. You see, Phil and former Led Zeppelin frontman Robert Plant, who had both collaborated a few times as you might know, went to a restaurant in Chicago called The Pump Room. While Robert was allowed in, Phil was denied on the grounds that he didn't meet the dress code of jacket required. Phil argued in stating that he was wearing a jacket, but the people at the restaurant argued that it wasn't a proper one. Phil went on interviews talking about the incident and stating how he had never been that angry and frustrated before then. Despite all that, or rather because of it, the Pump Room's management sent him an apology letter saying that he can come to the restaurant wearing whatever he wanted, along with a complimentary sports jacket. That's strangely kind of nice and wholesome, I gotta say. I don't know if the Pump Room still exists anymore or not, but I would love to visit it. Although I'd probably bring a dozen different jackets with me to see which ones they allow, just in case. But anyways, on to the music itself, and see if there are any jackets required for that. We begin the album with its first song, and fittingly its first single as well, Studio. And honestly, I think it's a good choice. Not just as the lead single, but also as the first track on the album, as it sets the overall tone and style of what to mostly expect. In this case, we got a funky, energetic tune with a punchy drum machine and a catchy hook that many people compared to Prince's 1999, even accusing it of ripping it off and such, since that song was released about 3 years earlier. Funny enough though, Phil Collins himself did admit to having listened to it beforehand and being a fan of Prince overall. And besides, it only sounds like 1999. It doesn't copy the exact same chords or lyrics or anything. It just took heavy influence, like Prestige. The lyrics themselves are pretty straightforward as well. Instead of being about people partying in anticipation of an apocalypse like Prince's 1999, Studio is a love song about someone's crush for a particular girl, presumably named Studio, because why else would the song be called something like that? Between this and Genesis' Abacab, Phil sure has a type for women with strange, bizarre names. But actually, similar to how the name Abacab came about because Genesis were experimenting with different improvised music sections, the name Sussudio was thought of by Phil himself, almost like scatting while he was playing with the drum machine. He tried to think of another real word or phrase that sounded just as good, but couldn't, so the name pretty much stuck. Once again, we have a bit of guitar by Daryl Stumer, who had worked frequently with Phil, both solo and with Genesis, and brass from the Phoenix horns. And I'm kind of glad Phil still went with real authentic brass horns as opposed to just doing everything with synthesizers. But I guess with some other people aren't glad with it either, since Wikipedia lists the song as part of music considered the worst. Although I should probably take Wikipedia with a pinch of salt anyways. I mean, that list also includes MacArthur Park by Richard Harris, True by Spandau Ballet, We Built the Sea by Starship, What's Up by Not Four Non-Blondes, and Rockstar by Nickelback. So, what else can you do? Next is Only You and I Know, an underrated track in my opinion, featuring not only those familiar horns again, but also the return of the classic gated reverb drums, especially in the opening to I Don't Care Anymore. It's another upbeat tune, as you expect from classic solo Phil. The lyrics themselves are also fairly simple, being about how sometimes we only want to hear what others would have to say to us, what we may say to others, yet at the same time, we'll be willing to ignore someone's advice, being cruel to be kind, or being kind to be cruel. And of course, there's a chorus with the repeated line of, "'Cause only you know and I know the things we mean to say." I mean, I know, she knows that I'm not fond of asking. True or false it may be, but she's still out to get me. In seriousness though, this could refer to how we may say or express one thing to someone, but we actually mean to say something else entirely, especially if someone also happens to know it so, suspecting and all. In a way, this song is trying to make us think about how much we may know about ourselves and how others would. Or maybe not, it's just another little dance 80s track, and I'm just reading too deep into it. Sometimes I can't even tell. Then we have Long, Long Way to Go. A very different track from most of this album, and certainly one of his definitely underrated songs in my opinion. After two funky poppy tracks, we get something more calm, more slow, more personal and atmospheric. It's almost on par with some of his other slow tracks like In the Air Tonight, This Must Be Love, and If Leaving Me Is Easy, or even Genesis's Man on the Corner, Robert Plant's Big Log, and Peter Gabriel's Mercy Street. In this song, Phil sings about sitting here and trying to think of things to say or move you any way he can, and now it seems that we've still got a long, long way to go. Then we get the repeated chorus. Turn it off if you want to. Switch it off, it'll go away. Now, this could be interpreted in many ways. It could be literal, like how we've been attached to TVs, phones, and other electronics, and how they seem to consume a lot of our lives. Or even figurative, like how we let our fears, concerns, anxieties, and insecurities take up a lot of our minds. Either way, we must gain the confidence to turn it off. But when we actually want to, and maybe only by switching it all off, it won't bother us as much anymore. Again, I might be reading too deep into this, but it's fun to interpret. One nitpick I would have is that the song ends rather abruptly. It almost seems like this track has an extended outro of sorts, or it did have one, but someone thought it went on a bit too long, or that there wasn't enough space on the vinyl record side or whatever. So they just cut it short as a last minute thing. But besides that, this is a hidden gem among Phil Collins' discography. Kind of makes me wish Phil would have done more songs like this, or if he has, they should get more love and attention. Afterwards, we get to high, upbeat energy with I Don't Want to Know. This one is pretty much what you expect from 80s Phil Collins, a mix of synth and guitar, distinct sounding drums, and Phil's lyrics about dealing with breakup, like, for the umpteenth time at this point. Here he sings about a relationship having just broken up after a long while of instability, and now the ex is coming back, expressing regret, crying all about it, and begging for him. But Phil sees through it, repeatedly saying that he doesn't want to know, meaning that he won't waste his sympathies or even hear whatever she may have to say. Though honestly, I think it's because Phil has had a bit of stress and trauma soon after the whole debacle he went through during his time at a concert in Vice City. Long story there. At one point, he sings about how he was told to not lose his head to her. So, are they both immortals fighting for the prize? Or did Phil Collins date Princess Langwidere from Ozma of Oz? Or Princess Mombi from Return to Oz if you only know the film version? Side 1 ends with One More Night, the second single off the album, and again, you can imagine why. In contrast to the high-energy funk of Sussudio, this is a soft R&B-ish love ballad. But not as serious as Long Long Way to Go, but more like a sequel to If Leaving Me Is Easy, or even a proto Hold On to My Heart from Genesis' We Can't Dance. In fact, this song features an ending saxophone solo by Don Myrick of the Phoenix Horns, who also played on If Leaving Me Is Easy and I Cannot Believe It's True, among a few other songs by Phil Collins as well as by Earth, Wind & Fire. In spite of its slow R&B influenced nature, the song manages to have a catchy, memorable melody and hook, especially its chorus, "Please give me one more night, give me just one more night, 'cause I can't wait forever." I know many people who wish they could have one more night to play Club Penguin again. I've been sitting here for so long, wasting time just staring at the phone. That's pretty much everyone scrolling through TikTok, Reddit, and Instagram nowadays. And I was wondering, should I call you? Then I thought maybe you're not alone. I'm hoping it's not your parents. I've been owing them a lot of money and they're not happy with me. Like a river to the sea, I'll always be with you, and if you sail away, I'll follow you. A river to the sea, huh? There's a joke in there somewhere, but I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say it. So instead, here's a word from our sponsor. A word.